My guest today is a woman who has been described as a guiding light in the field of food intervention and biomedical treatments for children living with autism. As a mother of an autistic child, her personal journey has provided hope, support and solutions to other families who are living with autism. The author of 2 books, No Cows Today and Hi Thrive Me, I'd love to welcome to the show Kris Barrett. Thanks, Kris, for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Very excited.
Oh, awesome. So I guess let's start with the inspiration behind the book No Cows Today.
No Cows Today, yeah. So No Cows Today is our very personal journey. It's our family's journey really with autism. So it was written about my son because my son was diagnosed with autism in 2004, and we had a very rocky journey like all parents with autism do. But what I found was that there was a lot of people who wanted to know what we'd done and how we'd got through, or how we managed school, or how we'd managed to do certain things with Tim. And I actually just decided to write the story. It was a little bit of a purge for me, just to write, this is actually my life, this is what happened. But it also seems to be every parent's journey. I get so many comments that people are like, oh my gosh, you could have been writing that about our family, about our story, about our journey. So it was really to provide hope for people as well, because we started in a pretty dark place. We didn't have a lot of hope. We weren't given a lot of hope, and we managed to sort of achieve the unachievable with Tim. And there's nothing special about us. We were just a normal family, and I just wanted to show people that there's so much hope and there's so much you can do, and maybe get results that you'd never even dreamed of.
So I guess one of the questions that I have sort of been asked about before coming and doing the show is how did you know that Tim had sort of special needs? How did you know that there was something that wasn't quite right?
Yeah, well, I was actually a little bit slow in doing that, unfortunately. Looking back, in hindsight's a beautiful thing. He was a very, very sick little baby, and we'd also had a daughter who was 2 years older than him, and Tim wasn't meeting his milestones, but then everyone would say to us, he's a boy, he'll do it later, don't worry, girls would do it quicker, don't compare him. I was like, okay. And then we would think, oh well, he's been sick, he's probably a little bit behind because of his health problems, and he will catch up. So I think I was just living in this denial, really, that I just, with this vague hope that everything would come together. And it was actually, bless her, his kindy teacher who asked us, had we ever had his hearing tested, because she said he's really not responding in the room, he's not listening, he's not waving, he's not pointing. And it was like a ton of bricks that hit me. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's not doing any of that stuff. And when I go to pick him up, he's, running away. He's not running to me like the other kids were. And I knew his hearing was perfect. I knew his hearing was absolutely perfect. He could hear a movie and then recite it. I knew there was nothing wrong with his hearing. But we did the hearing tests with the paediatrician. We saw the paediatrician straight away. And it was only the second appointment. And he said, that there's something bigger going on here. And I was like, but don't autistic people not speak? I didn't know anything. I was completely in the dark. I was like, so while part of me, as soon as I, got that from the kindy teacher, part of me knew something big was wrong, but the other part of me was going, well, it couldn't be autism because, Rain Man is autism to me. That's what I knew, and he wasn't Rain Man. So, yeah, it was a little bit of a slap in the face, but also I felt good when I got the diagnosis because I felt like there was something I could do, because if it had a name, there was things that you could do to fix it. And I sort of went, okay, good. If I know what it is, I know what I'm dealing with. So, yeah, it was a very strange time.
And I mean, reading your book was very eye-opening for me, because just travelling on that journey with you, and I know that there was so many things, because it's not only that you're dealing with Tim, who has now had this diagnosis, that there's things that he needs, but I think it was more, you still had a family, you still had your daughter and obviously your husband. So how did all that work? How did the dynamics of, where was the attention given? I know that we have lots of viewers that have children that may be in the same boat. So they themselves may be struggling with, how do you make the whole family unit work? What did you do? What was the thing that helped you get through, and how did you coordinate it?
Yeah. Look, I have to say, sometimes I think it was, by the skin of my teeth that the family survived, honestly, because what happened was that 150% of my time and attention went into Tim. And I was like, I have to fix this boy. I have to make him better. I have to do every therapy. And if it takes 25 hours a day, that's fine. And for my daughter, that meant, for her, I made very unreasonable requests of a little girl who was, 4 or 5 years old. You should know better, because I didn't have the time or the energy. She was, she was fabulous and happy and quite advanced and everything. And so I had these very high expectations of her, which was, looking back, very unfair for her, for a little girl. And then, honestly, my husband and we came very close to not being able to keep it together. Because I honestly had nothing left for him. I had nothing left to be a wife. Like, you're a big boy, you need to look after yourself. And it was, something I really think by the skin of our teeth. And that so many people don't make it, and I completely understand why, because this just becomes, you're almost living in a parallel universe or something when you're just thrust into that autism thing. And what I needed from my husband was support, and I needed help, and what he felt he needed to do was work harder to bring in more money so that we could do the therapy. So we were completely at odds. He thought he was doing the right thing, but he was never home, and I needed him at home. And then he'd say, well, if I'm not working, then we don't have the money, and then we can't do this. And it was years of, it was miserable. It was miserable. It really, it wasn't great at all.
And I guess, when you're confronted with that situation, and there's so much pressure, because as a parent and a mother, your ultimate thing is to, I've just got to get my boy right. I've got to protect him. I've got to give him the best chance. And yet trying to, sort of balance everything else out. What did you end up doing? How did you manage to sort of keep it? I know that your husband sort of was giving his support by working, and for the families out there that might be in a similar situation, I guess, where you're trying to struggle to get that balance in your life with the life that you have. Tell me, share with us how did you start the quest? So maybe there's some answers
to get the balance.
Yeah,
I hit the wall. I literally, I had started doing all this dietary stuff for Tim. We were doing every therapy known to man. I was researching all night long. And so what I did for myself was ate pizza and drank wine. And a bottle of wine would get me to sleep at night.
Sounds perfect.
And I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't sleeping without sleeping pills. And then I wasn't functioning in the morning without, muffins and coffee and, or whatever I could get to stimulate myself to get through the day. And then we'd have the whole cycle again at night. And I hit the wall. And I was in bed for 5 weeks. And that's when it was like, okay, I'm no use to him when I'm in bed. I'm no use to can't help my daughter. And it was like, wow, it was like, it's a shame it had to go that far. And I try and tell all the people I work with, don't just learn from me. Don't do that. Most people do. They keep pushing themselves. But that was the big wake-up call to go, hang on. The only way this boy can get better and the only way this family can survive is if I actually look after myself. And then realise that if we only went to therapy every second week and every week, was that really going to, determine Tim's future? Was it, if I gave him the same meal 2 nights in a row, was that really a problem? Did I have to be in the kitchen being Nigella to be the perfect mother? Was that really going to make a difference? And I just had to really take stock of all of that, and that's it changed things around. Yeah,
and I guess too, it's hitting that rock bottom that you kind of can't go any further. That you go, okay, so what do I need to do?
Yep.
So reading your book was amazing at the steps that you took. And I know that there are people that are sort of prone to the traditional medical, and I know that there are people out there that are also prone to looking at alternative stuff. So what was the type of therapy, and what did you do to try and get some sort of a handle and some sort of a routine on Tim and his life and how he was going and your life?
Yeah.
And Nigella's not too bad. I think that would be awesome.
I'd love to be Nigella. I'm really not. Really not. Well, we started out with all the traditional therapies because when we left the paediatrician's office, we had a referral to a speech therapist, the name of an occupational therapist, and the special education kindy. That was it. It was like, that's all you can do for him. It's a lifelong condition. And so we threw ourselves into that, you know, every hour known to me, can I do more? Can I do double speech therapy? Whatever. What do I need to do? And, you know, I like to see things fairly quickly. And, you know, it was a few months had gone by and nothing was really changing with his behaviour. And it was only that I overheard another mother at the special education kindy, and she said she'd changed her son's diet and he was talking to her. I was like, what? How on earth can what you eat affect what child's doing? It's like, but it sort of stuck with me, and I went back to pick Tim up and I was like, I don't understand it, and I think it's wacky, but I actually said to her, what is this stuff you're doing? And she said, well, look, there's actually a guy doing research, and he's in, Mudgeeraba, which happens to be 3 minutes away from my house. And she said, here's some books in the library, and I went and got the books, and I spoke to this guy, and I was like, oh my gosh, this all makes sense. What's going on. I went home, said to my husband, right, that's it. I'm changing his diet, and I could make a packet cake at this point. That was, I thought I was healthy, mince and a bottle of sauce and some pasta. And Tim ate 5 foods at this point. He ate 5 foods. And the diet was a gluten and dairy-free diet. So every single one of those 5 foods was going to have to go. So my husband was like, good luck with that. Good luck with that. But what happened when we changed his diet and all the stuff that I had read about became true for him. And it was, first of all, we saw the health benefits. So I said to you that he had been a very sick kid. His eczema disappeared. His asthma disappeared. He had, I can't tell you how many antibiotics in the first 2 years of his life. It seemed to be constant because it was ear infections. They went. He never got another one. His diarrhea, that was 10 to 12 a day, diarrhea, reduced to about 4. He started to sleep because we'd actually had to put a gate on his room just so the rest of the house could sleep, because he would run around the house screaming all night, and we at least knew if we put on a gate, he'd be eventually fall asleep and he'd be safe, because that's the only way the rest of the house could actually get some sleep. And he slept after about 3 nights. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's something to this. And that just started me on that whole path of researching, what food can do to the body, what food, the gut and brain connection, which I didn't understand, never heard of before. But what you're putting in your brain, in your gut, because they're connected. So what you're putting in your gut is affecting your brain, it's affecting behaviour. And honest to goodness, he has not had. That was 12 years ago. He has not had an ear infection. He has not had any eczema. He's not had any asthma. It was incredible. It was just incredible.
As you can see, there is so much to learn and so much to go through. So we're going to take a small break and we're going to come back with part 2. So join me then. Thank you.